Love is supposed to be sacred. Marriage vows are supposed to mean something. Till death do us part isn't supposed to be a challenge. But sometimes, when those sacred bonds are shattered by betrayal, the betrayed don't just seek divorce lawyers. They seek something much more devastating. Tonight's tale comes from the darkest corners of Reddit, where a man's love turned to cold calculation, and his marriage became the blueprint for the most methodical, psychological revenge ever documented. This is the story of Marcus Rivera, and how he spent 18 months orchestrating the perfect destruction of his cheating wife and her lover. This isn't just about infidelity. This is about what happens when a brilliant mind is broken by betrayal and chooses to rebuild itself into something terrifying. Marcus Rivera was a forensic accountant. For 12 years, he'd made a living unraveling financial deceptions, following money trails, and exposing lies that people thought were buried too deep to find. His wife, Elena, used to joke that she married the most dangerous man in the world, someone who could find out anything about anyone. She thought it was funny, until it wasn't. Marcus and Elena had been married for 9 years. They'd met in college, built their dream house in suburban Denver, and had created what everyone called the perfect marriage. Elena was a successful real estate agent. Marcus was the top forensic investigator at his firm, and together they lived a life that made their friends envious. But perfection is often just a carefully constructed illusion. And Marcus was about to discover just how carefully Elena had been constructing hers. The first crack in their perfect marriage appeared on a Tuesday evening in October. Marcus had come home early from a business trip to surprise Elena for their anniversary, only to find her car gone, and their bed unmade in a way that suggested someone else had been in it. Most husbands might have confronted their wives immediately. Most husbands might have demanded explanations, thrown accusations, started screaming. But Marcus was a forensic investigator. Marcus followed evidence. And Marcus was about to conduct the most thorough investigation of his career. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus installed hidden cameras throughout their house, not in bedrooms or bathrooms. Marcus wasn't interested in voyeurism. He was interested in patterns, who came and went. When Elena lied about her schedule, how her behavior changed when she thought she wasn't being watched. What Marcus discovered made his blood run cold. Elena wasn't just cheating on him. She was living an entirely separate life. For almost 2 years, she'd been having an affair with Thomas Brennan, Marcus's best friend and the best man at their wedding. But it wasn't just an affair. It was a systematic campaign to destroy Marcus's life while stealing everything he'd worked for. Through his forensic investigation, Marcus uncovered a conspiracy that would have impressed criminal masterminds. Elena and Thomas had been systematically transferring money from Marcus's accounts into hidden offshore funds. They'd been using Elena's real estate connections to launder money through fake property transactions. Most devastatingly, they'd been planning to have Marcus declared mentally unstable so Elena could gain control of his substantial inheritance from his deceased parents. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. Elena would claim that Marcus's work stress had caused a psychological breakdown. Thomas, as his closest friend, would corroborate her story. With medical testimony they'd already purchased from a corrupt psychiatrist, they would have Marcus committed to a psychiatric facility while they legally seized his assets. Once Marcus was institutionalized, Elena would divorce him, claim his inheritance due to his incapacity, and disappear with Thomas to start a new life in the Cayman Islands with Marcus's money. Marcus sat in his home office, surrounded by evidence of the most elaborate betrayal imaginable, and realized that his wife and best friend weren't just stealing his money. They were planning to steal his sanity, his freedom, and ultimately his life. Most people would have gone to the police. Most people would have filed for divorce and fought for their assets in court. But Marcus wasn't most people. Marcus was a man who specialized in unraveling complex deceptions, and he was about to orchestrate the most complex counter-deception in history. Marcus's revenge would have 3 phases. Phase 1, feeding them false information to accelerate their timeline. Phase 2, documenting everything while setting up their destruction. Phase 3, the perfect trap that would destroy both of them simultaneously. Phase 1 began immediately. Marcus started exhibiting subtle signs of stress and instability. He would leave work early, claiming headaches. He would forget conversations Elena thought they'd had. He would seem confused about financial documents, giving Elena the impression that her plan to have him declared incompetent was working. But every breakdown was carefully calculated. Every forgotten conversation was secretly recorded. Every time Elena thought she was manipulating Marcus's mental state, she was actually providing him with evidence of her conspiracy. Meanwhile, Marcus was conducting the most thorough financial investigation of his career. He traced every hidden account, every fake transaction, every illegal transfer. But instead of reporting them to authorities, Marcus began systematically reversing them. Using his forensic accounting skills, Marcus created a paper trail that made it look like Elena and Thomas were stealing from their own accounts to frame him. Phase 2 involved psychological warfare. Marcus began leaving subtle clues around the house that would make Elena paranoid. A coffee cup moved from where she left it. A photograph slightly askew. Her laptop password mysteriously changed. Nothing dramatic enough to confront, but enough to make her question her own sanity. At the same time, Marcus was feeding false information to Thomas through their friendship. Marcus would casually mention fake business deals, non-existent inheritance complications, and fictitious legal problems. Thomas would report these to Elena, who would adjust their criminal timeline accordingly. But Marcus's masterpiece was still developing. You see, Marcus had discovered something that Elena and Thomas didn't know he knew. The corrupt psychiatrist they'd bribed to declare him mentally incompetent? Dr. Harrison Webb had been stealing from Medicare for years, billing for sessions that never happened with patients who didn't exist. Marcus now had leverage on the man who was supposed to destroy his credibility. Phase 3 began 6 months after Marcus discovered the betrayal. By this time, Elena and Thomas believed their plan was working perfectly. Marcus seemed increasingly unstable. Their money laundering operation was nearly complete, and Dr. Webb was prepared to testify about Marcus's deteriorating mental condition. They had no idea that Marcus had been 3 steps ahead of them the entire time. On a Friday evening in April, Marcus invited Thomas over for dinner. "I need to talk to someone," Marcus said, playing his role perfectly. "Elena thinks I'm losing my mind, and maybe she's right." Thomas arrived at 7 p.m., probably expecting another evening of manipulation and fake friendship. Instead, he walked into the most elaborate revenge trap ever constructed. The dinner was normal. The conversation was normal. But at exactly 8:30 p.m., Elena arrived home to find Marcus and Thomas sitting at their dining table, surrounded by every piece of evidence of their conspiracy printed out and organized in neat stacks. Bank records, email communications, photographs of their meetings, audio recordings of their conversations, financial documents showing their money laundering operation. Dr. Webb's confession, which Marcus had obtained by threatening to expose his Medicare fraud. But Marcus wasn't done. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice calm and controlled, "I'd like you to meet Detective Sarah Morrison from the Denver Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. She's been very interested in the evidence. I've been gathering about your activities." Detective Morrison stepped out from the kitchen, where she'd been reviewing the evidence Marcus had provided. Behind her were 2 more officers and an agent from the FBI's white-collar crime division. Elena's face went white. Thomas tried to run and was immediately arrested, but Marcus had saved the best revelation for last. "Oh, and Elena," Marcus continued, pulling out one final document. "I should mention that I've known about your affair and your conspiracy for 18 months. Every conversation you've had, every plan you've made, every crime you've committed, I've been documenting all of it." Marcus stood up and walked to Elena, who was now handcuffed and in tears. "You see, darling, you made one critical error in your plan to have me declared mentally incompetent. You forgot that I'm a forensic investigator. I specialize in uncovering complex frauds, and you just committed the most complex fraud I've ever seen." The evidence Marcus had gathered was overwhelming. Elena and Thomas had stolen over $800,000 from Marcus's accounts. They'd committed wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, the psychiatric commitment plan, and attempted theft of inheritance. Dr. Webb, faced with evidence of his Medicare fraud, had confessed to everything and agreed to testify against Elena and Thomas in exchange for a reduced sentence. But Marcus's revenge went deeper than just criminal charges. You see, During those 18 months of investigation, Marcus had also been conducting a different kind of forensic analysis. Elena's real estate business, Thomas's consulting firm, their joint investments. Marcus had discovered that both of them had been committing various forms of financial fraud for years, not just against him, but against dozens of clients. Marcus had provided evidence of these crimes to every regulatory agency, professional board, and law enforcement division with jurisdiction. Elena's real estate license was revoked. Thomas's consulting firm was shut down. Both of them faced lawsuits from dozens of former clients. The criminal trial lasted 6 months. Elena received 12 years in federal prison for conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and attempted kidnapping. Thomas received 10 years for his role in the conspiracy, plus an additional 5 years for his separate business frauds. Dr. Webb received 3 years and lost his medical license permanently, but Marcus's revenge extended beyond just legal consequences. During Elena's trial, every detail of her betrayal became public record. Her family disowned her. Her friends abandoned her. Her professional reputation was destroyed so thoroughly that she became a cautionary tale taught in real estate fraud prevention courses. Thomas's wife divorced him and was granted full custody of their children, along with all marital assets that weren't seized by the government. His elderly parents, who had trusted him with their life savings, discovered that he'd been stealing from them too. Marcus not only recovered all of his stolen money but was awarded punitive damages. The house he'd shared with Elena was sold, and Marcus moved to a penthouse in downtown Denver. He started his own forensic accounting firm specializing in matrimonial fraud, and his reputation as the investigator who solved the Rivera conspiracy made him the most sought-after expert in the country. Marcus never remarried, but he didn't need to. His work became his passion, helping other victims of elaborate frauds get justice. He testifies as an expert witness in complex financial crimes, and his methodologies are taught at law enforcement academies across the country. Every year on his wedding anniversary, Marcus receives a letter from Elena in federal prison. She always writes the same thing: "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." Marcus has never responded to a single letter, because Marcus learned something important during those 18 months of investigation. The best revenge isn't about making someone sorry. It's about making sure they face the full consequences of their choices. Elena thought she was manipulating a man who loved her. What she was actually doing was providing evidence to a forensic investigator who specialized in destroying people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. Thomas thought he was helping his lover steal from his best friend. What he was actually doing was confessing to a man who was recording every word and building a case that would send them both to prison. Dr. Webb thought he was participating in a simple insurance fraud. What he was actually doing was signing his own professional death warrant. They all made the same mistake. They underestimated Marcus Rivera. They saw a loving husband and loyal friend. Marcus saw their crimes as the most interesting puzzle he'd ever been asked to solve. And Marcus was very, very good at solving puzzles. Today, Elena is serving year 7 of her 12-year sentence at a federal correctional institution in Texas. She works in the prison laundry for 12 cents an hour and spends her evenings writing letters that will never be answered. Thomas is in a different federal prison in Colorado, where he's become a cautionary tale about what happens when you betray someone with the skills to destroy you systematically. Marcus lives in his downtown penthouse, runs a successful business exposing frauds, and occasionally gives lectures at law enforcement conferences about the importance of patience in complex investigations. The marriage that Elena thought she could manipulate became the blueprint for her own destruction. The love she thought she could exploit became the foundation for the most methodical revenge in forensic accounting history. They say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But sometimes, the most dangerous fury belongs to a forensic investigator who's been betrayed by the people he trusted most. Elena and Thomas learned that lesson the hard way. And somewhere in America, there's another cheating spouse, planning another betrayal, making another critical error. They're underestimating their partner, and their partner might just be someone who specializes in making people pay for their mistakes. The question is, what price will they be willing to pay for their betrayal? Marcus Rivera proved that some lessons are worth waiting 18 months to teach, and some revenge is worth serving in a federal courtroom with a 12-year sentence.